In an era of turmoil and transformation, a figure was born who would challenge the future of history. On October 15, 1844, the world welcomed Friedrich Nietzsche, a being destined to become one of the greatest and most misunderstood geniuses of all time. Surrounded by tragedies from an early age, with the loss of his father and brother, Nietzsche grew up in a world full of unanswered questions. By the age of 24, he was already a star in the academic scene, a brilliant young professor at the University of Basel. However, instead of conforming to success and academic standards, Nietzsche chose a different fate. Determined to find the truth in its purest form, he left everything behind: career, status, and social life, seeking refuge in the solitude of the mountains. There, in the silence of nature, far from distractions and societal dogmas, Nietzsche began to weave his deepest and most revolutionary philosophical ideas. In his voluntary exile, Nietzsche confronted humanity's greatest questions. What motivates us? What is right and what is wrong? Through his brilliant mind, he challenged accepted concepts, proposing new perspectives on morality, religion, and the meaning of life. After revolutionizing the world with his ideas, he ended up going mad, perhaps precisely because of the number of ideas he had to face and understand at that time. Truths that were too heavy for anyone to carry alone. But what leads a man to isolation in search of truth? What did Nietzsche find in his solitude that led him to reject the life we all know? And more importantly, what can we learn from his discoveries and dilemmas? This is the story of a man who lived intensely his inquiries, a man who saw beyond society's masks and what is behind the whole nature of the entire universe. So, today we will get to know the life and philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. God is dead, and we have killed him. This is one of Nietzsche's most profound and striking reflections. This rebellious proclamation is not an attack on religion but a wake-up call for humanity, an invitation to reassess the foundations of our existence. Born into a family of pastors, Nietzsche was the least likely of heretics. However, it was precisely his heritage that shaped his unique perspective, leading him to develop a worldview opposite to Christianity. This rebellious aspect of Nietzsche, this courage to confront and challenge established norms, would be a constant in his life and work. In his criticism of the philosophy and culture of his time, Nietzsche was neither sparing in his words nor afraid of intellectual solitude. His books, though brilliant, faced public scorn and academic isolation. But it is in this rejection that his philosophy finds its true purpose: to question the value of life not for a distant ideal, but for its authentic experience. Nietzsche challenges us to live life on our own terms. For him, each moment is unique and should not be measured by unreal standards or imaginary futures. He argues that sacrificing the now for an ideal is to create a mental prison for ourselves. A real life will never be like the idealized one. When addressing the theme of nihilism, many directly associate it with Nietzsche. However, he not only reinterpreted nihilism, but also transformed it. He criticized the philosophy that diminishes our experiences, sensations, and vitality in favor of an ideal imposed by the majority. Nietzsche uses Plato's allegory of the cave to defend an almost opposite viewpoint. While Plato encourages us to leave the cave in search of the light of reason, Nietzsche advises us to recognize and value our internal reality, our experiences and desires as the essence of life. He suggests that it would be best to embrace life in all its forms, with its imperfections and illusions. He argues against the idea that only transcendent ideals have value, advocating that our immediate wills and desires are what truly matter. Nietzsche's philosophy invites us to examine the idols that may be ruling our lives, whether imposed by society, religion, or our own minds. Are our idols and role models really serving us? Are we not sacrificing our authenticity for a false sense of security? Nietzsche's questioning makes me question my everyday life. Are we living according to our own values, or are we simply following the steps dictated by others? For him, that is exactly where suffering comes from. The suffering comes not from external condition, but from the mismatch between our deepest aspirations and the reality we are forced to accept. It is the denial of our true will. the submission to idols and values that we do not recognize as our own, that leads us to suffering. He argues that society imposes models of behavior, idols, that promise happiness and security, but in reality, distance us from our essence. By living according to these imposed standards, we deny ourselves, creating an internal abyss of dissatisfaction and despair. For Nietzsche, true human suffering arises from this disloyalty to the self. He challenges us to reject the imposed idols and to face life head-on, with all its uncertainties and imperfections. By embracing our passions and fears, instead of denying them, we can find a path to a more authentic and less painful existence. Nietzsche presents a concept that challenges our perception of life and time: eternal return. This idea is as provocative as it is liberating, serving as a measure to assess not just life itself but the essence of our existence. He prompts us to consider, what if we had to live our life exactly as it is, over and over again, for all eternity? A good life, according to him, is one that we would embrace without hesitation, an existence that, in its entirety, we would wish to relive, time after time. The challenge of the eternal return forces us to look beyond external distractions and evaluations based on foreign standards. Nietzsche argues that we should not live based on future expectations or past regrets, but rather find value and satisfaction in the now, in the present moment, and in each action we take. Of course, life entails challenges and suffering, but Nietzsche suggests that by embracing our desires and following our instincts, we can mitigate adversities and live more authentically. This philosophy is not an invitation to unchecked hedonism, but a call for full consciousness and a celebration of life in its entirety. The eternal return is an invitation to introspection. Are we living in a way that would make the repetition of our days a desirable journey? Nietzsche challenges us to live in such a manner that in the end, we could look back and say without regrets that we would joyfully relive each moment. Amor fati, or love of fate, is how Nietzsche encapsulates this unconditional acceptance of life. It is not about passive resignation, but an active embrace of all that life offers, the good and the bad, recognizing that each experience contributes to who we are. While we cannot love every moment of life, we can learn to see every aspect of it as an essential piece of the puzzle that is our existence. The world is as it is, not as we would like it to be. This acceptance frees us to live with integrity and purpose, following our own true wills and desires. Nietzsche's concept of eternal return is not a burden, but a liberation, an opportunity to reflect on our lives and make decisions that resonate with our most authentic self. It is a philosophy that not only accepts reality, but celebrates it, encouraging us to live every moment as if it were eternal. Faced with this infinite perspective, how do we choose to live our lives now? This is the question Nietzsche leaves us, an eternal invitation to examine the essence of our existences and find true satisfaction in every moment we live. Imagine if you lived your day-to-day life over and over again, for all eternity. What is the feeling you are having now, good or bad? A life dedicated to the search for truth and the deconstruction of established values culminated in a deep questioning by Nietzsche. What is right and what is wrong? Who decides the morality that governs our lives? Nietzsche explored these issues with intensity, proposing that morality is often a product of reactive forces created to control those driven by the will to power. In his view, society is divided between those who follow the rules without questioning, seeking an imposed ideal, and those who fight for the affirmation of their individuality, often facing ostracism and misunderstanding. But even a spirit as revolutionary as Nietzsche was not immune to the adversities of the human condition. At 44, he suffered a mental collapse after witnessing cruelty against a horse on the streets of Turin, Italy, where he lived. Years of silence and isolation followed, an existence marked by the absence of any intellectual activity. Far from the world, he tried so hard to understand and reform. This dark period reflects the harsh realities that Nietzsche faced, the isolation caused by his challenging ideas, personal tragedies, and the constant struggle against the dominant values that he saw as antithetical to true human freedom. However, History has not forgotten Nietzsche. His ideas, although controversial and often misinterpreted, continue to resonate, deeply influencing philosophy, literature, psychology, and the arts. Nietzsche's legacy lies not only in his writings, but in the courage to question and challenge, inspiring generations to look beyond conventions and seek their own path. What Nietzsche leaves us is an invitation to reflection, a challenge to confront established truths and to seek meaning beyond social impositions. In his life and work, he encapsulates the eternal struggle of the individual against the currents of tradition and conformity. Thus, as the pages of Nietzsche's life close, the questions he raised remain open, inviting us to reflect on our own existence and the legacy we choose to leave behind. If you like philosophy, psychology, and topics related to personal development, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Tell me what you thought of the video by commenting right down below. Thanks for staying till here, and follow the White Rabbit.